Hi guys, it's Mook again, and we're getting really close to finishing the project. Okay, here is what we've got so far. Got the combat knife. I forged this out of 5160 steel. I shaped it on the sanding / grinding machine. Got the bevels refined, shaped the tip. You can tell that I dropped the tang a little bit, and I narrowed the tang just slightly here to put a shoulder all the way around the interface where the tang meets the near end of the blade. We've got this down here, and I've made the hardware that goes on it. We've got the bronze shim right here, steel guard, olive wood handle, and at the back we've got another steel guard, steel piece, another bronze piece which is bigger than it's going to be. I am going to pare that down. My initial plan was to peen over this end of the tang to hold the whole end together. But this is a combat knife, and thanks to Rob, a fellow YouTuber whose channel is RDPproject, he suggested that instead of peening over the end, put some sort of a cap on here to make a skull crusher. You know, if you take this and smack it down on somebody's head, they call it a skull crusher because you've got a sharp, hard bit right there. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this. This is a solid brass knob. I'm going to thread this nib right here so that this can screw on the end. After I get that screwed on the end, I'll do a final little bit of filing to make it more of a, not a sharp point, but more of a point. And what I'm going to use to thread this is a 1032 tap and die tool. This right here is a little bit big to thread right now, so I'm going to go out to the shop, sand this down a little bit so it's just the right size to go in there. Now there's one final thing, one interesting little bit here. I don't know how well it comes out on camera, but you can see that there's a little bit of an angle offset. This is not at directly 90 degrees to the back end of the handle here. Fortunately, this nib is larger than what I need, so I can sand a little bit off here and a little bit off here to change the angle of that so that it is directly at 90 degrees to this. So when I screw everything on, I'm not going to have an angle right here. It'll fit flat. Okay, I've ground this down. I haven't bent that. What I did is I ground away some here and I ground away some there to kind of make it angle at a different angle. And now you can see that it's essentially 90 degrees to the back half of the handle, so I can thread this and the screw isn't going to be canted off to the side. One thing I learned a long time ago is that when you're threading metal, you have to keep oil on it, keep it lubricated, and you go slow. You advance your tap a little bit, or your die a little bit, then back off. Advance a little, then back off. Because what you want to do is you want to be able to clear those shavings out of the way so they don't bind up and break the teeth off of your die or break the piece of metal that you're trying to put the threads on. Okay, I've got it threaded. I'm going to use that little brass knob, make sure that I actually have the threads right. Looks like it's right. Now I'm going to use some grease cutter to take the oil off of this before I start to assemble things, because I don't want to leave the oil on there when it comes to putting the epoxy on, otherwise it might not bond right to the pieces it's supposed to bond to. Brake cleaner. The last bit of prep work I'm going to do before assembly is I'm going to take this wire wheel and I'm going to dress all the steel pieces, including the blade, just to get any extra schmutz off of there, which I won't be able to reach once I get this thing put together. That. The first piece here, I'm not going to put epoxy on the front side of it, of course. I'm going to put a little dab right around here. It doesn't have to be very thick at all, but I do want to make sure that there is enough there. Just squeeze around, make a nice bond with the steel guard. There, that's on. Now, this is the part that goes on first. I'm going to put some epoxy down in here so that as I run the tang this way through this hole, it will push the epoxy ahead of it along this whole channel so that I get maximum bond all up and down the channel to the tang. I'm putting some on here because I want to make a good bond between this and the steel guard. Good. I even got enough to squeeze up through and take up the extra space in that. That's exactly what I was looking to do. Now, take this, smear a little bit of it around here so I get a good bond between the back side of the handle and that. It's going to float a little bit until I get it stuck in place. That's good. Make sure I get a little bit on here.
Oh, it's starting to get tacky now.
No, it's still pretty well workable. This piece goes on here. Now, I'm going to get as much of this off my fingers as I can. Now there is some epoxy. I want to get some on these threads because I don't want this nut backing off of there. I can see I got a little bit of epoxy there on that piece of brass. That's okay. Make sure all the pieces line up right. And there she blows. There's a little bit, a tiny little bit of squeeze out, like right there. So I got the tape on the blade. I'm going to let this epoxy sit for an hour at least before I take the tape off. I'm going to scrape a little bit. Then I'm going to put a finish on the handle. After I get several coats of finish on the handle, what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll buff this whole thing, and probably, I imagine buff it with a little bit of beeswax. That'll protect both the steel and the handle. Okay, here it is, finished product. I've got one coat of finish on the handle. It's olive wood. I think it's going to be very pretty after about 4 or 5 coats. I'm going to leave the blade with this kind of patina on it. It's a sort of a matte finish. Of course, it's got that dark gray. This right here, I've decided I'm going to leave it like that for now. If I change my mind, I can always file it down a little bit. I'm happy with the way this turned out. Thanks for watching, guys.